Welcome to the Women on Fire podcast. We're on a mission to help you have your best menopause and rest of your life. I'm your host, Jenna Moore. I'm an integrative health menopause coach, and I've studied nutritional awareness, women's hormones through a functional medicine lens, and explored various modalities, including breathwork, mindset, and positive psychology. Join me and my guests as we discuss how to navigate the natural life transition of menopause and growing older, from waistlines, waning libidos, and what to wear now we're over 40. We discuss it all. Women on Fire is sponsored by MenoMe, a New Zealand-based company by women for women. MenoMe specialises in evidence-based, all-natural supplements to support you through every stage of menopause. I am very humbled to introduce you to our guest today. She is Professor Jayashri Kulkarni AM. She is a leader in psychiatry and women's mental health. So if you don't mind, I would love to read her pedigree to you so you can understand how fortunate we are to have her as our guest today. So Professor Jayashri Kulkarni AM graduated in medicine from Monash University in Melbourne in 1981, and she became a fellow of the College of Psychiatrists in 1988. Jayashri commenced her appointment as Professor of Psychiatry at the Alfred and Monash University in 2002. Now, she has also founded and directs two research centres. One is her Centre Australia, and the other one is the multidisciplinary Alfred Psychiatry Research Centre. She is also head of the Department of Psychiatry, School of Translational Medicine, Monash University, Faculty of Medicine, Nursing and Health Science. Now, her Centre Australia is dedicated, and this is so fantastic, dedicated to understanding and treating mental illnesses experienced by women during any stage of their life. And Jayashri has conducted groundbreaking clinical research and is internationally acknowledged as a leader and expert in the field of women's mental health, in particular for her innovative work on reproductive hormones and mental illness. So as a woman, if you suspected there is a link, you could well be right. Her world-first research in hormones and mental health has led to the development of new treatments for women with mental ill health. And she developed and launched Australia's first women's mental health hospital at Cabrini Health, I think I've pronounced that right, in September 2021. So that's just 3 years ago. She was recognised and received an Order of Australia for her services to medicine in 2019, which is hardly surprising and well deserved. And in 2024, she's also received two prestigious awards from the Royal Australian and New Zealand College of Psychiatrists. And one of those is the Ian Simpson Award for the most outstanding contributions to clinical psychiatry through service to patients and the community. The other one is the Senior Research Award for the most significant contribution to psychiatric research in Australia and Aotearoa, New Zealand over the preceding 5 years. So she's amazing and she has given us so much. And as you can also imagine, she's a very busy woman and highly sought after for her wisdom and knowledge. So I feel very, very honoured that she has come on the show today and to share some of that wisdom. So I hope, but I don't really need to hope because I'm almost 100% certain you will gain something from this episode. So please enjoy and thank you for joining us. You have done groundbreaking research on the link between women's reproductive hormones and mental health. So we support women in perimenopause, menopause and post-menopause, and it seems to be if you've had a mental health issue before, it can come back magnified, or it can raise its head with loss of confidence, anxiety, panic attacks. Is this thing, has your work evidenced this?
Yes, and in fact, I've developed a questionnaire which is validated and published, and it exactly lists these symptoms, because menopausal depression is different to menopause or to non-menopausal depression. That's in the sorts of depression that men experience or that younger women experience. And what we've noticed is that from about 40 onwards, women can present with, first of all, anxiety and panic attacks, and then rage, and they can gain weight is a common feature as well. There's also a change in sleep, and these things happen first up, but then can be followed by tearfulness, as well as a real profound loss of energy, a loss of libido, and self-esteem takes a beating as well. And all of these things fluctuate as well. So that's the other weird part about this condition, is that it's not consistent. And so it can be that sometimes people have it for a week or two and then suddenly become fine. And then again, a week or two later, they get into the same mental health conditions. Over time, however, though, the episodes of feeling more normal tend to become shorter as this thing continues on and becomes more and more severe. And we must not think that this is just a temporary condition or that it'll just right itself, because unfortunately we do know that the suicidal thinking can lead to suicide attempts, and in the worst scenarios, absolute tragedies with completed suicide. So this is a severe condition in some women. And I hasten to add that because we don't want to be medicalising menopause, and we know that many, many women sail through menopause with no particular issues at all. It just so happens that some women have a really tough time. And the percentage of how many women experience this is somewhere between 30 and 50%. So we're not talking small percentage, but we are talking about a percentage. So some women really will not have any problems.
So that is quite high, isn't it?
Yes.
Because I've heard the suicide statistic for women 45 to 54 is the most common age group for women. Is that correct?
That's correct. And that's the Australian statistics. As a cohort, so we're not talking about absolute numbers, but as a cohort, women, middle-aged women, are at the second highest likely group to have high suicide rates of completion. The highest rate in Australia is men over 84 as a cohort. So,
Really?
yeah,
Oh.
so these are surprising statistics for many people, because I think we don't often talk about this, and I think there's also a sense of minimising, or somehow we've got ourselves into thinking that middle-aged women don't matter, or that that it's sort of just a thing that all women go through menopause, so therefore grin and bear it, or just pull up your socks and get on with it. There's a whole lot of mythology about this area, but I want to make it clear to your viewers and listeners that in fact this is a significant time of mental health change for many, many women. And if you're experiencing this, then you're A, not alone, but B, you need to get some professional help, because otherwise it can get out of control.
So that's what you would recommend, going and seeking professional help?
Yes, absolutely.
Mm.
I think it's also important to um, keep the conversations going, because you learn a lot from peers, from other women who are going through it, and from women who've been through it. And so it is an important network. But also, let's not forget the men folk, because it's important that this is not just seen as women's business. This is everyone's business, because this is somebody's mum, somebody's sister, somebody's female work colleague, somebody's partner, and so on. So, we need to get everybody understanding that this could be a really tough time for the middle-aged woman. She's going to need support, she's going to need understanding, and she's going to need accurate and appropriate treatment when necessary.
So would you recommend that she shares what she's experiencing with her friends and family also?
Absolutely,
Mm.
because otherwise people are sort of sometimes really, particularly partners, romantic partners, whether they're male or female, can really be scratching their heads going, what happened to the lovely woman that I'm used to being in a relationship with? She disappeared. I've
Mm.
got this person now who's just really anxious, or she's raging and she's angry about nothing much, and she's just not enjoying life, and I don't understand what's happening. And there can be sometimes this sense of the people who are really close are the ones who perhaps cop the rage, and are not sure what to do about it all.
Mm. I've heard this termed menopausal mood disorder. Is that a term you would you recognise as well?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, mood disorders as a clinical term is a big group, a
Right.
big heading, which encompasses depression. It encompasses the other side of depression, which is mania. It's any sort of version of those. So you can get depression up and down, fluctuating. You can get mania or hypomania, which is a bit of mania. And these mood disorders are related to the hormone fluctuations in the brain. So we've got to remember that menopause hormone fluctuations are happening in the brain, often first before they happen in the body, but they are happening and they have an impact on all the brain chemicals and all the brain circuits. So it's not surprising that women at this stage of life struggle with maintaining their mood, their cognition, which is their capacity for higher thinking, their memory. All of that is important. We focus when we say menopause, everyone, oh yeah, hot flushes. Well, that's not
Yeah.
so bad. You just kind of wear thin pajamas, or don't sleep with a big heater on or something. But it's so much more than that. That the hot flushes are kind of at the end of this process, and many women deal with those quite easily. But what they cannot deal with is the awful despair and
Mm.
anger. And then also, because of the fluctuating nature, that she's okay today, she's terrible next week, that somehow many women get a diagnosis of bipolar disorder, which is the old term for that was manic depressive disorder. And then they get treated with a whole bunch of drugs that have side effects, like antidepressants plus antipsychotics plus mood stabilizers plus benzodiazepines like Valium and so on. And that then leads to a whole other range of problems, because now you've got somebody who's not themselves, they're still not up to their full functioning because these drugs are not hitting the target, and they're giving them side effects, often weight gain and other side effects. So this is a really difficult situation that many women find themselves in during the menopausal process. So it's not bipolar. It's not going to present, bipolar disorder is not going to suddenly present when somebody's 50 and they've had nothing beforehand. That's highly unlikely. So again, what sometimes people find is that it's the depression, that they're feeling sad and they're angry and they're tearful, but then in the fluctuation they flip back to themselves, and then they go, oh, I'm back, and they'll run around and do all the things they couldn't do when they didn't have energy and felt depressed. And so someone will look at that and go, oh, see, she's manic, she's running around and doing all this stuff. No, this is a different thing altogether,
That's
and
quite
we've got to be
dangerous.
careful. Yeah, we've got to be careful not to label or misdiagnose serious mental illness in this particular thing. This is a serious condition, but it has a different outcome, and again, different forms of treatment. And what we find is the best form of treatment for the woman who's got severe depression that's not responding to lifestyle changes is to actually think about hormone treatment,
Mm.
which one of my patients said, isn't that obvious? Like if it's a hormone strategy, if it's a hormone problem, why wouldn't you use a hormone treatment? She's right. She's damn right.
And in the field of psychiatry, would there be specialist menopause? Uh, no,
I
there
wish
wouldn't be
there
too.
were.
Yeah.
And that's exactly one of the struggles we have, because for a long time, and still, there's a misbelief. People go, well, hang on, this is a mental illness, it's brain, and what's that got to do with menopause? And so there's this kind of odd separation of body and mind or brain, and we still operate in sort of odd silos of thinking. So the hormones don't have anything to do with the brain, because that's all their reproductive hormones. It's all about having babies and turning off the fertility at midlife. And yet the neuroscience evidence from animal studies and other studies are very clear that these hormones, estrogen, progesterone, testosterone, are potent brain steroids, and they work really strongly in the brain first and then work on the body. So, that's something that's really old-fashioned thinking, but it's still around, and many clinicians still believe that menopause is all about the hot flushes, and that's about it. Or they minimize the mood. They call it sort of mood swings or grumpiness or bothersome. There's always, every time you talk about menopause, someone brings out the word bothersome symptoms. It's not used in any other part of medicine, but it is in menopause, and it minimizes the severe nature of some of the symptoms that some women experience, to call it just bothersome. So, there's a whole range of things that we have to think again and refresh the way we look at menopause, because we are unfortunately struggling for the continuance of women who are experiencing these mental health conditions to stay in the workforce, to not drop their salaries and have then problems with superannuation and all of that. And, your nation and our nation can't afford for, many, many women who are at the top of their game in whatever field they're in, to suddenly just leave because of the menopause depression. And so it is important that we understand that adolescent children, sometimes, the mum who's going through menopause is not functioning as she normally would, and then their behaviour deteriorates, or their outcomes in terms of navigating through turbulent adolescent issues becomes difficult without mum functioning as mum. Often middle-aged women are responsible for the care of their elderly parents as well, and they're often senior managers in workforces, or they're in relationships, and we don't want any of those things to be impaired for her. Plus, we also want to make sure that she heads into old age, in a good, healthy way, because that will make for a healthier old age and a more enjoyable time for her. And she's damn well earned it, that's the other side of it, after all the learning and working and all the things that go on in a woman's life, she deserves to be able to sail through a healthy, happy menopause and healthy, happy older age.
And you're doing amazing work in this field, in terms of enlightening and educating people about this, aren't you?
Trying to, but it's always a struggle to get funding for research, always, and then we have to then be able to convey the findings to the broader population. So I'm really grateful to people like you, Jenna, because in your vodcasts and other things that you do, you're able to reach a whole lot of women who we can't reach through publishing in scientific journals, which we have to do for credibility, but then not everyone reads those articles. And there is a lot of mess and noise when you start talking about menopause, because we've got the group who go, this is a normal, natural process. What are you doing? Stop medicalising it. Stop making out that it's terrible, etc. And look, I'm not trying to. I still say most women will get through it and not have big issues. That's great. But that's not the women that I'm seeing in my clinic or that we're trying to help. We're trying to talk about and help this group of women who actually experience mental ill health quite significantly in their middle age. And as I said, it's not a small percentage, but it is a percentage. So we mustn't forget about the women who are very lucky and don't have a problem. But those women should not stigmatise their lesser lucky sisters who are experiencing the problem. And that's another issue, because we often get the comments like, I didn't have a problem. Why are you making a fuss about it? So we've got to stop that. We've got to actually listen to each woman. And that's the other part about what I really want to see happen, is that the woman's voice who's experiencing the absolute mental ill health conditions related to menopause is strong, and she stands up for, right, this is what it is. It's not bipolar disorder. It's not standard depression. I need and want a hormone strategy, and I will work with you, the healthcare professional, to determine what the right type and the right dose is, and I'll, take charge of my own health follow-ups, because it is important that women have regular breast screening, pap smears or cervix screening, blood pressure checks. Somebody once said every woman over 45 should know her numbers. So every woman should know her blood pressure, know her cholesterol levels, and, continue to have good health measures. And it's great. We live in countries that can afford to provide that. So we should make sure we all take advantage of that, and that we remain in charge. So we can't just kind of do a test and then just not worry about the result. We've got to chase it up and so on.
Which is great. And I think women are using their voices more and more, aren't they?
And I also like the holistic approach. So, you're a coach in this area, and I think it's great to bring in healthcare and people who are part of healthcare but not direct nurses and doctors only. It takes a whole village,
It
really
does.
does.
It
And
does.
so, to have somebody who's an expert in exercise, what's the right exercise for a menopausal woman who is gaining weight, because that's what the menopause hormone process is doing, but she's trying her hardest, to exercise and eat healthy. But a lot of the exercise programs are not made for women, and that's middle-aged women. That's a real problem, because then she can get injured, and that's a difficulty, or feel shamed, when a trainer is yelling at them and so on. And I've seen that happen, and then she just retreats and she goes, I'm not doing that. So we need, a much more menopause, midlife focused exercise and health, eating well, because sometimes women, due to the weight gain, will just starve themselves and go, oh, I've gained weight and I don't know what's going on. Well, the hormones are what's going on, but, she starves herself, and then she gets more depressed because the brain needs fuel, needs good fuel. And so starving herself is not the answer. And I've seen that happen so many times, that I've had women who say, I feel miserable, and I just take a story about what are you eating, and it's, black coffee and a lettuce leaf. And that's terrible, because, she feels awful. The nutrients and all the rest of it are not happening, and the brain is just kind of shutting down and saying, no, I'm not doing the higher work that you need me to do, not if you don't feed me properly. Or you get this fluctuation between black coffee and a lettuce leaf for 2 days, and then suddenly it's chocolate and hot chips and, the worst things, because it's like, oh, what's the point? I didn't lose any weight. Now I'm just going to splurge. So, it is important to understand weight gain during menopause. It's important to understand body change in shape and size and so on, and what's healthy and what's, not healthy. But to keep a perspective, you aren't going to look different. You don't look like we did when we were 19, and quite frankly, wouldn't want to. It's also important to have that perspective, but there's a whole village that's needed to provide the care that each woman needs, and each woman will have a different set of needs.
That's very true. And it's just understanding a lot of the changes, because the goalposts change.
Yes. And
Don't
so
they?
there is a lot of noise in the discussion. But I think if you're suffering because of menopause changes, then you're suffering because of menopause changes, and you go and you get help and you make your needs known loudly and assertively.
Yeah, assertion, I think, is the thing, because I hear from a lot of women that go and see their GP and they get fobbed off, told they're too young,
Yeah.
get a prescription for antidepressants and sent
Yes.
on their way. So,
Or they get a blood test, and then the GP or other doctor will say, look, the blood tests are all normal. Well, of course they're normal. You don't have a tumour that's creating a problem. The blood tests that are done take a sample from your arm, And that is only going to tell you pretty much what's going on in your body. It's not going to tell you what's happening in your brain. Unfortunately, we don't have the technology to pick up on the fluctuations in the brain. So don't be misled by normal blood tests, of hormone levels and so on. That doesn't mean that, everything's fine in terms of menopausal process. I come back to it. Women are very good usually at knowing what is going on in their bodies, especially if they've had children, etc. They're really attuned. But, everyone as well is very attuned. They've had monthly cycles. They pick up on the variations in bloating or breast size or, ankle swelling and all the rest of it. They know their bodies and they know their mental health in terms of what stresses are normal stresses and what are normal juggling things that one does. And this comes out of the blue. Like suddenly she'll tell you, I just can't do any of the things that I used to do. And it's all happened pretty quickly. I don't understand. I think it's my hormones. So when somebody says that, it's really important that that is heard, because she's right. 9 times out of 10, she's right. And there's no point then messing around with taking blood tests and saying, look, it's all fine. What we would hope then that the primary healthcare practitioner, the general practitioner, or other doctor can do is say, right, what do you think is the best approach here? We could go down a hormone strategy, we could go down an antidepressant strategy, we can go down a counselling strategy, we can, and just lay it out in terms of the palette of choice. Or we could go down natural medicines pathway, and see what she wants to do, because she may not want hormone strategies first up. She might want to try with seeing, because it's fluctuating. So some women will wait for a while to see if it'll be manageable, and in some cases it is. But if there's ever suicidal thinking or, really reaching the depths of despair, then I'd suggest that, it's really important that we think of a hormone strategy first, and then maybe add in antidepressants down the track if that hasn't worked.
Amazing advice for people. And I know that you're very busy. I need to let you go. So, have you written a book, or have you got one coming?
I'm thinking about it. The problem I have is I'm so busy with
Yes.
treating very desperate women in the clinic. And this is why I'm so passionate about it, because I've seen some terrible things happen to really, really amazing women whose lives have just disintegrated. And I'm so keen to prevent that. And what's frustrating for me is that there are solutions. This isn't the condition where we don't have treatments, or we there's still molecules that have to be made into appropriate treatments or whatever. It's not that. We actually have all the treatments available. We just need to deliver them to the woman who's in despair. And so it's very frustrating for me when I see women who are getting antidepressant after antidepressant, and then they're told they've got treatment-resistant depression, which makes them feel like they're resisting the treatment. It's their fault that they're not getting better, or that their partner leaves, their kids are in despair as well, and then they get into trouble. They lose their jobs, they lose their finances, all sorts of complete downward spiral. And I just feel so sad, because I think if only we could have intervened with a hormone strategy right back there, then none of this would have happened. So that's my plea, that to the healthcare practitioners out there, listen, please think about the menopause when you've got a middle-aged woman in front of you. That's it, a simple message. And to the middle-aged women out there, and I know you'll hate this, but, we'll just start thinking about middle age from about 43 onwards.
Yes.
For women who are in that bracket, think about the menopause if you are actually wondering why you're getting more snappy, more irritable, you're not sleeping, you're gaining weight, and you're starting to become tearful, and you're not able to concentrate and have a good memory. Think about the menopause and take that thought to your health practitioner, because we've got to do better for women.
Yeah, we do, don't we? And that's why I do this work too. After my own experience, which I think a lot of us do.
Absolutely.
Mm.
Lovely to chat to you, Jenna. Thank you for having me on your vodcast. I'm sorry about the tech issues, but we got
No,
there.
I'm sorry. Thank you so much. I just feel very honored that you have given us some of your precious time.
Thank you, Jenna.
Thank you. Thank you for listening to this episode of Women on Fire. If you like what we share, please subscribe and give us a rating and or a review. In addition, visit our sponsor's YouTube channel at MenoMe 100, where you can subscribe and watch all of the interviews. That's the best way to support this podcast so we can continue to bring it to you. Thank you for your interest in midlife, menopause, and women on fire. Let's keep this fire alive. And I know that you're very busy, and we got taken up a little bit with tech issues at the beginning, but I know that I need to let you go. So, is there any other message, or is there a book? Have you written a book, or have you got one coming? Yes. Really? Yes. Yeah, we do, don't we? And yeah, that's why I do this work too. After my own experience, which I think a lot of us do. Mm, mm. No, I'm sorry. Thank you so much. I just feel very honored that you have given us some of your precious time. Thank you. Bye.